This is one law that I have really learned to love. Now, I paid a big price before I learned it, but when I did learn it, my whole world changed. And you know, it wasn't until I had studied this material for some time that this law made sense. Let me read you something here that scientists have given to us. These are very bright people. You must understand that 90% of all the scientists that ever lived are alive today. Scientists accept the truth that the body of a human is moved by the mind, that all its functioning is governed by a ruling thought, whether that thought is subjective or objective, whether it's conscious or unconscious. Those who study the mental processes find that all the conditions of the body are created and caused by the mind. It is known that creation in and every form is governed by and subject to a law. Hence, when one misuses, inverts, or violates a law, this mistake is called a sin. This is interesting. A sin is a mistake, a misunderstanding, and a misjudgment. A mistake is falling short of or disobeying the law, whether that law be mechanical or spiritual. Correction is the only method of adjustment or of appeasing the law. Thus, repentance and forgiveness are the only means available to alter and correct that mistake. I'm Bob Proctor, and I want to talk to you about the law of forgiveness. Now, for a long time, I never understood this. Sin is truly transgression of the law. Now, when I was a little boy, I was sent to Sunday school, like a lot of little boys that grew up in the part of the world where I grew up. And if I didn't go, my older sister would tell. And so I was punished when I didn't go. Now, I also learned that if I said this word or that word, it was a sin, and I was taught that the price of sin was death. Now, I thought that was rather severe, but that's what I grew up with. That was the idea that this little boy learned at a very early age. Now, I was a curious kid, and I was told if I said this or if I did that, it was a sin, and again, the price of sin was death. Well, I thought, I think I'm going to take a bite out of this apple. And I said it, and I didn't die. And I thought, aha, I think I'll try this. And I did it, and I didn't die. In fact, it was fun. So I thought, that mustn't be true. But you know, later on in life, as I started to learn the truth about how the universe operates, the laws, I found out it was true. It was my understanding or perception of what these people were telling me. And that was probably the problem. And it probably was even further than that. It's because of their intention of what they were saying, because I think I was getting what they were saying to me. Well, you see, there's a very basic law of life, and that law says create or disintegrate. We're going ahead or we're going back. Now, disintegrate doesn't mean that you're just going to disappear. You know, when we talk about live or die, that doesn't mean that our heart's going to stop and the blood stops flowing and we're either, incinerated or placed in the ground. That's not what that means. It means that we're either going ahead or we're going backwards. That means things are getting better or they're getting worse. If we violate the law, the price of sin is death. It means things are going backwards. Things are not going to be as good as we want them to be. If we live in harmony with the law, we're going to go ahead. So do you see, sin is transgression of the law. Price of sin is you're going to go backwards. Live in harmony with the law, you're going to go ahead. Now, forgiveness is a phenomenal concept. I never used to think much of it. I thought, forgive, what's it mean? It means let go of completely, abandon. Forgive yourself. You can't change what you did. Do you know there's many people wander around with great feelings of guilt. Guilt is guilt and resentment are two of the most destructive emotions that you'll ever come up with. I was raised with guilt. Now, I've been telling people for years, if it gets to a point where you can't handle a problem that you've got, you should go to a professional. Well, it's like the guy said, I like a chef that'll eat his own cooking. I was raised with guilt, and so I experienced a lot of guilt. And I was having difficulty getting rid of it. Any little thing I did that, that I just didn't think was right, I would have great guilt over it. So I went to a psychiatrist in Southern California, in Century City. And I only went to that psychiatrist 3 or 4 or 5 times, I guess. And I was on my way down the last time that I went, and I realized I didn't have to go anymore. And I phoned him and I said that I wasn't coming. He said, well, come on down anyway, because I like what you're doing. I want to find out more about what you're doing. And he was able to help me get rid of the guilt. It was all a simple concept of forgiveness. Forgive means to let go of completely. Let it go. Forgiving is a very healthy concept. We've got to learn to forgive ourselves. We've got to forgive others. We have to realize that what we did yesterday, we cannot change. If you did something deliberately wrong, let it go. Forgive yourself. If you did it and you didn't do it deliberately, forgive anyway. Let it go. If someone else has done something to you, don't hold any resentment. Let it go. Now, that doesn't mean that you want to go and give them an opportunity to do it all over again. You may move away from that. But you cannot hold bad thoughts in your mind and move in a good direction. Listen to something else that Hollywell brought it out here. He said, a noted physician talking before a group of other medical people on this very subject of thought being the source of disease was recorded as having said in his concluding remarks, abnormal tumors and cancers are due to a long period of suppressed grief and anxiety. Another way of saying that such diseases are due to a lot of sinful thoughts getting bottled up and suppressed within our minds. If this state is so destroying, it might be wise for us to probe into our own selves and note the effect our emotions have upon the physical organism. Then let us seek by every means at our command to overcome and abandon and forsake every emotional tug that has a debilitating and disturbing effect. Do you know, that's such excellent advice. Do you know, if you go way back, found out we're just absolutely ridiculous. A lot of bad blood comes from wrong thinking. Try and understand this. Everything works from a higher to a lower potential. When you're dealing with electricity, you must work from a higher to lower potential. We don't even know what electricity is, but we do know the laws by which it operates. If you want a greater flow of electricity, put in a bigger bulb, get a bigger transformer. The only limit placed on electricity is the limit that's placed on the form through which it's flowing. Well, it's exactly the same with us. We work from a higher to a lower potential. We go from the thought to the thing. Spirit always manifests through its polar opposite. You go from the non-physical to the physical. You and I have the ability to tap into a non-physical world, a world of thought. And we can choose our thoughts. We can choose any thoughts we want. Do you know, Viktor Frankl was a Viennese psychiatrist, spent the war years in a concentration camp. And he said it was while he was in the camp that he realized that regardless of the physical or intellectual abuse that he was subjected to, no one could cause him to think something he didn't want to think. Do you know that's where attitude begins? Attitude is the composite of our thoughts, which cause our feelings, which express in actions. See, our thoughts, feelings, and actions, when they're all in sync, that's an attitude. Well, we want to have the proper attitude, we're going to live in a healthier body. We want to have the proper attitude, and we're going to enjoy the wealth that we look for. We want to enjoy the proper attitude, and we're going to have the friends that we want. But one basic concept is that you have to forgive yourself, and you have to forgive others. You see, guilt and resentment are without question two of the most destructive emotions that anybody can experience. Of all the laws that you're going to study, this could be one of the most liberating of all of them. Forgiveness. Letting go of. abandon. Just let it go. And when it comes back into your mind, let it go again. Form the habit of not holding on to anything that's causing you to feel bad. Start to love yourself. Start to respect yourself. Have a healthy respect for what you're capable of doing. And understand this, carrying bad thoughts about anyone or anything is not doing anyone any good. It's sinful. It's destructive. And the price of sin is death. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to bury you. But it may be burying your company. It may be burying your income. It may be burying your friends because they won't want to see you. Forgiveness, it's going to cause everything to grow. It's going to cause you to be healthy. It's going to cause your income to grow, your friends to grow, your business to grow. Forgive. It's a beautiful law. Forgive means to let go of completely, abandon. Replace the thought with one of beauty, with one of plenty, with one of abundance. You'll be glad you did. I did it. I'm a happy, healthy, wealthy guy. And you know something? Lots of energy. It just flows freely to and through me. I forgave me and everyone else that occupied a bad place in my mind. You do the same. The law of forgiveness could be one of the greatest laws you study. This is Bob Proctor. Thank you. Hello there, I'm Bob Proctor, and this could be one of the greatest misunderstood laws that there is. It's the law of sacrifice. Do you know, the way I was raised, and I would imagine probably the way you were raised, we were raised with the idea that sacrifice was letting go of something that we really valued. And it was sort of losing something that we valued. And there was some people that made great sacrifices, and they were considered very special. But the average person just never made those great sacrifices. Well, sacrifice it's a law that will bring nothing but good into your life. If we understand it, but we've got to understand it, and most people don't understand it. Sacrifice is giving up something of a lower nature to receive something of a higher nature. I talked one of the other laws about the last chapter in the Born Rich series, and it was on the vacuum law of prosperity. Well, sacrifice has to do with the vacuum law of prosperity. You move something out to make room for the good that you desire. Sacrifice is giving up something of a lower nature to receive something of a higher nature. And you have to give up the thing of a lower nature before you can receive the thing of a higher nature. So you see, sacrifice is based on a very good understanding of faith as well. Faith based on understanding. This is tricky. This isn't something that's just going to happen like that. Now I want you to think of this for a moment. I want you to imagine that you've gone to a great concert and you are marveled at the performance that you see. Or go to a great stage play and you see acting that is impeccable. Or watch a great award-winning movie and you'll see acting and you'll think, wow. Or you may watch somebody like Tiger Woods. Watch the great athletes. Some great soccer player, a great golfer, a great ball player. Watch the Olympics and you see those swimmers or those athletes and you think, wow, how does that happen? Well, it doesn't just happen. As this author said, granted, they may be exceptionally gifted, but those final magical results come not by chance or accident, but they come from discipline. Discipline that is consciously chosen, ardently desired, and patiently persisted in. Let me repeat that. Discipline that is consciously chosen, ardently desired, and patiently persisted in. I have often said that discipline is the ability to give ourselves a command and follow it. I will master this. I remember one time reading an article in an airline magazine, and Walter Cronkite was being interviewed. And he was asked in the magazine, in the interview, how did these astronauts develop the courage to get into those space capsules? He said, it didn't take any courage for them to get into the space capsule. And as I read that, and I thought it's easy for him to say, he's sitting behind a microphone announcing it, he didn't get in the space capsule. But as I kept reading, I realized he was right. He said, what took the courage was the sacrifices they made, the study, the hundreds of hours of study, the repetition in the simulators. He said that's what took the courage to prepare them to get in the capsule. It took discipline. It took discipline. How did Halliwell call it? He said, discipline that's consciously chosen, ardently desired, and patiently persisted in. No one ever becomes great at anything by accident. We talk about people getting something for nothing. There is no such thing as something for nothing. That's absurd. When we're talking about the law of sacrifice, we're talking about letting go of something of a lower nature to receive something of a higher nature. In other words, it's saying, I'm going to give up the ice cream cone now to get the bicycle a little later. This is based on faith. And it's not blind faith, it's faith based on understanding. It's understanding that we have this infinite potential, we've got phenomenal potential, we can do better. I talked about it in the law of compensation. And we're going to get better, but only if we give up something that's valuable to us to receive something that's even more valuable. Think of the study, the practice. You know, I like watching two movies, Lawrence of Arabia and Patton. General Patton, great American general in World War II, who also thought that he was a general in Napoleon's army. Believed very much in reincarnation. And then Lawrence of Arabia, watching Peter O'Toole, who literally, mentally became Lawrence and Omar Sharif. You watch these actors. They're magnificent. You watch Lawrence come across the desert on that camel. Look at his face. They do a close-up on his face. He's not acting. He's living the part. Watch Patton. Watch the great speech right at the first of the movie. Get those two movies, buy them, watch them over. If you want to see people that made sacrifice, understood that law, and lived in harmony with the law to develop the greatness that they always had in them, you'll see it in those movies. Watch Patton. He's so good. You watch Omar Sharif. Wow. The acting is phenomenal. They understood this law of sacrifice. They gave up something of a lower nature to receive something of a higher nature. But they had to understand this concept of discipline. See, Halliwell said something always has to be sacrificed for something else. Here's your law of compensation coming in here. You've got your vacuum law of prosperity coming in here. You've got to create the space for the good that you desire. Listen to what he says here. People everywhere are awakening to the necessity of disciplining their thoughts and acts. We train domestic animals carefully. We harness the forces of nature to serve us regularly and well. And yet, when it comes to ourselves, the most valued of all, we let our thoughts run wild. No one can obtain their ambitions until they learn to discipline their mental force and are able to control their thinking. See, that's what this whole series is about. That's what all these laws are about. It's about working with the law. It's about bringing our mind into harmony with the law. It's about letting go of things of a lower nature so we can receive things of a higher nature. This doesn't happen by accident. The greatest marketers in the world, they spent years studying what they're doing. The greatest athletes, they spent years perfecting their skills. There's no free lunch. You're not going to get anything for nothing. You're going to have to make sacrifices. You're going to have to give up something of a lower nature to receive something of a higher nature. This whole universe operates by law. The law is something that happens every time for every person everywhere. And we've got to understand that sacrifice is a law. Get in harmony with it. Understand it. It's so priceless. Listen to this. Halliwell said, you cannot enjoy the satisfactions and pleasure of a true friendship and indulge in a bad temper. If you will not sacrifice your temper for friendships, you're going to sacrifice your friendships for a bad temper. Isn't that good? One cannot have a sterling character that friends will respect and trust and resort to crooked practices. If he will not give up his crooked ways of trustworthiness, he will have to sacrifice his trustworthiness for crookedness. You don't even have to think too deep on this to realize it's true. But I'll tell you something you will have to do. You'll have to work at it every day to make it a habitual part of your life, to make it a part of your paradigm. You see, most of the things we do are controlled by paradigms, habits. Paradigm's nothing but a multitude of habits. And if we're going to change our life, we're going to have to change our paradigm. We're going to have to sacrifice the habit of a lower nature for one of a higher nature. So you see, as you study into this, you're going to realize just how important discipline is. And I want to leave you with just an absolutely beautiful concept. You've got to discipline yourself. It's discipline that is consciously chosen. You've got to choose it. Someone else can't give it to you. This is done from within. It's discipline that's consciously chosen, ardently desired. You've got to really want it. Man, I so want to be better at what I'm doing. And patiently persist in it. Patient persistence. Seems like an oxymoron, isn't it? Patient persistence. Just steadily focus where you're going. You've got it. You've got all the talent and ability. You've got it inside. But if you're not prepared to sacrifice what you've got, you're never going to get anything better. And understand this. It's create or disintegrate. If it doesn't get better, it's going to get worse. You've got to discipline yourself. And you've got to live in harmony with this law of sacrifice. You'll be so glad you did. Working in harmony with the laws. It's such a winning concept. I've proved it in my life. My friends all have in their life. That's why they're my friends. We work in harmony with the law. We're not perfect. We're working at it. Every day. I want you to work at it every day. This is Bob Proctor. Thank you.